What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. Tonight, you just get rich. You can find me on X at FuzzDoomRip, all the socials at rich.piva, doing reviews from Musipedia of Metal, and as a Doom Charts contributor. Also, the show is a sponsor of the Tampa Doom and Gloom Fest 3 with my guys and Florist and a whole bunch of other cool bands. More to follow on that soon. I'm very excited to have Chris, Jen, and Sako from the LA band Bronco Forte, who just put out their new record right here, which I have, called Lightning Scars, and it's killer. And if you haven't heard it yet, what's wrong with you? Copies available on Bandcamp right now, and going to talk to you guys about that record. Also, just wanted to shout out and say I got this too, which is
Hell
pretty
yeah.
cool. Very happy. Well, I'm going to ask you about this later, but welcome to the show. Really appreciate it. Love the new record. For those of you who might, for the listeners who might not know Bronco Forte, tell us a little bit about the band and a little bit about what you guys would say you sound like, for example.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. I guess we've been a band since I think 2022. The band started with some riffs that I wrote, kind of to make a long story short. I was living in the Bay Area and had this kind of epiphany about this thing I wanted to do. Wrote some initial songs and knew I kind of needed a bigger pool. I wasn't able to start the band in Santa Cruz where I was, so I came down here and put out an ad to try and find some people. And one of the first people who answered was Sako, who also had written some riffs, and they could have been mine, right? Somehow we found that we were just on the exact same wavelength with what we wanted to do, and we started to put a band together. Shuffled things around for maybe a year or so, and then Jen came on board as bass player a little bit into that stint, and we've got a drummer, Jeff, who is in Hawaii right now, so he can't be with us.
Darn.
Yeah, I mean, we call it, desert rock, with a bit of maybe stoner, a bit of grunge, and I think, I was thinking about this today, and like, what is the distinction? Like, um, I feel like we come from a very kind of song focused place where we're not as likely to take like a big riff and like just live with it for 6 to 8 minutes, right? Like I think we love bands that are able to pull that off, but our stuff is a little bit more compact. So that puts us more in like we're huge grunge fans. We came up on that music, and of course the desert rock thing is very very in that same vein too. Well, you
Yeah,
two got thoughts? How'd I do?
I coined the term stoner pop. That's what I call it.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah, a
Love
lot
it.
of the bands in the genre, they don't, like Chris said, it's long, drawn out, like droning riffs. And, we, as much as we love that, we also love good hook driven songs. And we try to like mesh the two together.
And it's interesting looking. I was a fan of the first record too. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences, and it looks like so. Jeff, who's in Hawaii right now, was the bass player, switched to drums, and now Jen, you're the bass player. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I got conned. No, I'm kidding. It was like a one-time thing initially where Jeff had some obligation, like a family obligation, so he couldn't play bass. And instead of them looking for somebody last minute, I mean, Sako and I have been together 10 plus years. Uh, he was like, "Well, my girlfriend plays bass. I've been in the previous bands. I mean, I have the bass just sitting there collecting dust." So it was a fun challenge to learn a handful of songs, and one thing or another happened, and I just stuck around. So here I am.
Love it, love it. And you guys pulled off the trifecta that is always gold of having the album, the band name, the album name, and the song name opening it up, which is a great way to start your career as a band, and nailing it. Um, Again, a fan of the first record. The big difference to me on the second record, I think you guys kind of went for it from like an engineering production standpoint because the record sounds amazing. But it sounds amazing not in the overproduced way, which it could have if you went in that direction. It's like right in that sweet spot of, you mentioned grunge, like 90s the good 90s alternative heavy stuff. That's what it reminds me of. So tell me a little bit about the difference between how this one was recorded, engineered, and produced versus the original one. I think you guys did yourselves, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think really you hit the nail on the head there. The first one was essentially in our rehearsal space, with kind of the microphones and gear that we had, just because, we had just started as a band, we needed some shows, we needed an internet presence, we had some songs, we kind of wanted to create sort of a calling card, and that became a little platform for us to start with. But we didn't really consider it a real record, so to speak. But then we decided we were going to do a full length, and we talked to a bunch of people, and we ended up working with Kevin McCombs, who Sako knows. He can kind of tell you about how he knows him. But Kevin is a real pro. He works out of this place, the Steakhouse, North Hollywood, which is where Queens of the Stone Age did Era Vulgaris. A bunch of bands have done amazing records there, and Kevin was very, very excited. He kept telling us, like, I never get to record a band in a room like this. um, so much modern stuff is all done piecemeal, but we knocked the whole thing out in like 3 days, and it was all about the room drum sounds and going through this big knee forward and just this kind of analog warmth to it. So yeah, it has that real huge quality.
Yeah, I think a big difference between the EP and the LP is that the EP, when we tracked it, it was done individually. So we did scratch guitar tracks, then our previous drummer laid the drums down and we layered everything on top. When we did Lightning Scars, it was the four of us in the live room with our headphones on with a click track, and we played those songs live. So what you hear on the record is the band playing the songs live. There was little to no punching in or editing, and then some solos were done after the fact just because I didn't want to have to tap dance when we were my pedal board when we were recording with the band live. And what we did is we played each song probably 3 or 4 times each because time was really constricted. We only had X amount of days to get this done. So we came up with the idea of let's do it live as a band and we'll do 3 or 4 takes per song. And what you hear is what we did. So
The I think, and I have to make that distinction that this is technically then your debut record, the first one you're considered an EP. Is that an accurate statement? Okay. Then we have to debate like what an EP is versus what a full length is. There's a big
Right.
debate in my little group of what a EP is when you start making lists because you're a nerd and you do those things. But we're
We
going to
need to
say this
hear.
is your debut full length, and very impressive list of names of bands who the people who you brought in to work on this record have worked with, names that you don't necessarily hear when I interview bands in this particular genre. So, Saka, you know the individuals who you worked with that produced this record. How did you come to work with them?
so I play with another band or artist, this singer, her name's Lexi Lane, and she does like alternative, modern kind of spirit box style metal music. And I've been playing with her roughly around the same amount of time as I've been playing with Chris. And through that project, I was introduced to her ghostwriter, engineer, the brains behind it all, Kevin McCombs, and he and I became close friends. And I'd been to the steakhouse doing Lexi stuff, just shooting content there, rehearsing there with the band in the live room. So when it came time for us to seriously consider doing an album, I shot the idea by Kevin, and he was immediately on board with it for like the reasons that Chris was saying is because he's the full-time engineer there at the steakhouse, and he gets a lot of projects that he works on that he just has to do just because it's his job. Most people are not coming in and doing like a niche genre, subgenre of a subgenre of music like what we're doing, let alone anything that's relatively heavy because some of the artists he worked with are like big popular acts, 311, Linkin Park, things of that nature. When he got an opportunity, because Kevin's a metalhead, like hardcore metalhead, like he has his own band and they rip. So he got super excited, and I kind of showed him some of the stuff that we were working on, and he was on board. And I mean, Kevin just knocked it out of the park. It was he was also kind of a producer in a sense too. I don't think he realizes that he has those capabilities because there was just certain things in the process of us recording that he picked up on, and why don't you guys try this, or maybe do this part this way a little bit. So he kind of, in essence, co-produced the record for us too. And then, and through doing the record with Kevin is how we were introduced to Nick Townsend, who mastered the vinyl for us. Because when the idea was planted that we wanted to press vinyl, I didn't realize that you have to have a special person to master the record specifically for vinyl. So it added a challenge that I necessarily wasn't aware of. So when I brought that idea up to Kevin, he immediately said, "Nick's the guy you want to go with," and it worked out. And it just so happened that Nick's worked on Monolord and like so many great bands, and his specialty is heavy music for vinyl. So it's like the stars just aligned on everything for us with this, and it just kind of happened in a way. It's kind of crazy how it all went down.
The record sounds amazing on vinyl. One of the I know you guys said you recorded it live, but it also you can hear the distinct parts that are playing in there, and I hear the drums, especially like the drums are super clean on the recording, like to the point where I'm like drumming along with like the hi hat and stuff. Like it's very clean, but not again like clean can be a very big negative, especially for me if it's produced heavily, it will sometimes turn it off completely. But it's just right in that sweet spot. And speaking of the sweet spot, you mentioned this earlier, the stoner pop, the harmonies and the melodies that you guys bring and the 4-minute pop songs, technically, which these kind of are in the best kind of way and as a compliment. Is that all you guys singing? Because I see all three of you have vocal credits on this. Is that the three of you in the studio all harmonizing together and singing together? And how did that come to be? Because that's to me just a huge kind of differentiator for you guys on this record.
Yeah, that's us. I mean, there's certain songs like Lightning Scar and Obvious Alias, like on some of the chorus or the pre-chorus spot where we're doing like a group vocal type thing. But some songs I'm doing some of the backup vocals, but the lion's share of it, the credit for the backup vocals goes to this individual right here and her amazing voice. And I pushed for it as much as she didn't want to because I know she can sing. I've heard her sing in our house, and I was like, we have to utilize this. Utilize her voice because Chris wrote such amazing melodies and harmonies for the song, and she's completely capable to do it all. And I like the balance of having Chris's lower tone and register accented by, a higher female voice. It's something that you don't hear. The only band that I could think of that is doing that is Slomosa. They just so happen to have a female bass player, but on the few tracks that Marie sings on, I mean, they're some of my favorite Slomosa songs. So yeah, she really knocked it out the park on that one. But the lion's share of the credit goes to Mr. Chris here because I mean he is just one of the most like talented people I've ever had the pleasure of creating music with. Like I'll send him some just whatever riff that I just think is like, I'm self-conscious about my writing, and I'll send him an idea, and then he'll work his magic on it and send me something back with just like hummed melodies on it. And I'm like, this every time he sends me something, I'm just like, this is brilliant. And then it happens so organically every time we create a song. It's just I'm really fortunate to have all met and to be able to create music together. So I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but
I
you
love it.
know, it,
I have two follow-ups. Number one, Jen, so does this mean like when you're cooking dinner or you're in the shower, you're singing, but then like when the stage lights come on, you're like, oh, I'm out, I'm good. And Sako, to convince you to do this? Is that like the situation that we're in here?
I mean, like originally when I did that one time only show that ended up making me a permanent band member, I didn't do any backup vocals at all at that point. But I think once we hunkered down and kind of like got into the nitty gritty of this, like the full length album, is where like, I mean, honestly, Chris did like a bunch of like rough tracks where he'd like send to us, and he had his like ideas for the backup vocals. There may be a few place where like I tinkered, or I think on Telescope I was like, hey, I have this idea, and I brought it to them. But I mean, for the most part, I'm super self-conscious, and like when we're on stage, like yeah, I'm a nervous wreck because like there's I don't know, everyone has a certain ability to like learn a song on bass guitar, like to an extent. But I don't know, it's like the instrument, but having your voice be the instrument, I don't know, I'm very self-conscious about it. So it's like really pushed me to like put myself out there. And I mean, I think it's worth it. And I think, I mean, we get a lot of positive feedback from people too. Like most of the time people are coming up to us after saying like, "Oh, I loved how you guys harmonized and yada yada." So, I mean, as much as uncomfortable as I am doing it, I'm glad to do it. And like, there's no one better to do it with than Chris, because like I just love Chris's voice. And maybe he doesn't want us to say, but I'm gonna say that Chris has done some solo stuff, like acoustic stuff, and hearing him on stage, just his own voice, like it's amazing. So, I mean, how if I can contribute to that, like hell yeah.
I love it. I love it. And Chris, I have questions, but just the harmonies are always what gets me. Like you when you can pull that off and you can do that well, especially in the genre that we're in here, it makes a big difference because there's a lot of riffs and there's a lot of chunkiness and there's a lot of heavy. And I don't want anybody hearing this who have not heard the record to think that this is not a heavy record. I say pop, I say harmonies, I say melodic, but like it's heavy. The first, there's a song called Cultist Canyon and a song called Gulp Church. So, like, yes, this is a heavy record, and there's stuff like that going on. But the other stuff is, I think, what really differentiates this record. Chris, just as Jen and Sako kind of mentioned how talented and how they love working with you, and I can hear the songwriting, and I could hear kind of the voice there. What are some of your major influences when you think about your singing, your writing, and just your overall approach?
Yeah. I think like a lot, I mean, I assume this is very, very common for musicians and songwriters. As I grew up, as I came up through things, I would find something and I would just live in it for years. Like when I was on my early college years, I sort of found the Beatles and I didn't really care about the Beatles before. And then I just marinated in the Beatles for like 2 years and listened to basically nothing else. And like that's there and that seeps into you, that seeps into your process. And from there, I got into like the country music of the 50s and 60s and like lived in that for a while and then like some jazz for a while and then always with my kind of great awakening for music as an early teen was grunge. I mean, I don't know how badly this dates me, but like I bought Nevermind in 1992 from like the Sam Goody on CD with my allowance, right?
I
And
bought the cassette that's like 2 weeks,
yeah,
right after it came out. So I'm right there with you at the mall,
yeah.
Massapequa
From
Mall, Long
there,
Island.
Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, and like those were, that movement had a lot of pop to it. There were a lot of harmonies in that music as well, and there was a very much a song-centered quality to it. So I think as I've tried a bunch of different things and tried a bunch of different sounds, like that kind of mix of kind of darkness and lightness has always kind of been there. And I guess I would also say, like, most bands, like when you find a secret weapon, you kind of tend to write towards it, right? So like once Jen kind of started to provide this thing, and we were like, oh, this sounds amazing, having these different colors kind of mixing, we started to kind of maybe write more in that direction. I think that's happening now. Yeah.
Very cool. And date yourself all you want on this show, because generally
Yeah,
speaking,
that'd be okay.
I am the me personally, I'm the 90s grunge nerd guy. Like I'll ultimately what happens, I'll interview a band and they'll say, "Oh, I'll say you sound like this really obscure bargain bin 90s alternative band," and they'll be like, "I don't know what we're talking about." But thank you. And that's kind of the direction that I usually go in. So I hear all sorts of different bands. When I hear you guys play. But like to your point, Alice in Chains, is there a more harmonized band than those two guys singing together, right? I mean, heavy as all hell. To me, probably at this point, the most influential band in heavy music today would be Alice in Chains and Black Sabbath, and then Alice in Chains, which is I don't think anybody would have predicted that in
Isn't that funny? Like,
1993. But
wouldn't have thought that they would have become such titans, but they really were.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think I hear that in almost every band that I talk to today. Um, I want to talk, Sako, just because you're wearing a Typo Negative shirt, I have to ask. Are you the metal guy of the band? Are you the metalhead of the band? Then you
I am,
bring that
yeah.
kind of darkness and the more heavy side of things? Or?
She's a metalhead too.
I'm a metalhead.
Don't get it twisted. Yeah,
Nice.
we both are.
He's more like old metalhead. I'm like newer
Well,
metalhead.
no, that's not
Oh,
true.
let's talk about this. This is
I
interesting.
love
Okay, so typo
so
negative, old metal guy. So I'm there. What
I
you
mean, you just any decade you could mention, and I could tell you the bands that I enjoy from those decades. But for years it was just metal, 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 and as the years have gone on, I've branched out into other kinds of music. But I do like the heavy stuff. I remember in the infancy of this, the riffs that I were bringing were a little bit too much, so I had to learn how to write songs to help Chris sing and make that the focal point. Like I know in the genre, like it's all about the riff, right? Just these huge riffs. And that works for some bands, but like, Chris talks about the secret weapon here, and it's these two. And so I've had to adapt my writing style and my guitar playing style to make it work for the band. And that's actually, you'd be surprised, like writing like crazy heavy fast metal riffs is way easier than writing something that's a bit slower and less busy and catchy. So I always feel like, if you're the best musician in the room, you're in the wrong room. The same thing applies to songwriting. If you're the best songwriter in the room, you're in the wrong room. So being able to work with Chris has really made me a better songwriter and a better musician. But yeah, I still, even though we don't play that crazy heavy stuff in this band, I still listen to it when I'm doing my music outside of this project. Yeah, like with Lexi, that stuff's, I'm playing 7 and 8 string guitars. So
I
what
want to throw that back too because I've never before this band written melodic lines, singing lines, and lyrics to somebody else's musical guitar song structure. I was always like, nah, don't think so. But like Sako kind of is pushing me to like I hear his stuff. I'm like, oh, I immediately hear the vocal line, which is surprising. I didn't think that I'd ever hear that. So we both got pretty lucky. All four of us did.
very cool. And since Jen is the metalhead too, Jen, what are your go-to records right now? What are you listening to?
Uh, that's a good question. Well, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of like Chris, like, well, I think all four of us are super eclectic because I mean, I have my moments where I'm listening to like In Sync and and Backstreet Boys when I have my moments and I'm like feeling nostalgic, I'm a girl and I grew up with in the 90s, so all the boy bands and stuff and the R&B stuff, but then I went through like I don't know, what would you say is like From Autumn to Ashes and Avenged
oh, so
Sevenfold,
like
Betrayed.
metalcore,
Yeah, I went through
Metalcore.
that
Okay.
phase.
please.
And then I went through like more of an emo phase. Well, I went through like a symphonic metal stage,
Nightwish. She loves
Nightwish, yeah,
Nightwish.
Children of Bodom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was obsessed with Alexi Laiho, R.I.P. And I got to meet him. That was pretty cool. But I
Oh,
was
that is
way
cool.
too nervous to like comprehend what was happening. But and then I don't know, not I listened to like Jet music and
After the Burial.
yeah, After the Burial is like one of my all-time favorite bands, The
Yeah.
Contortionist. I like things that are melodic, not doesn't have to have lyrics, but it can have lyrics. And then like those are like my top two that I listen to is After the Burial and The Contortionist. And I don't know, I mean, my first like real concert was Ozfest. That was what was 2004, 2005 Ozfest.
That is an
Lamb of
impressive
God.
first concert. That is a
Yeah,
very impressive first concert.
and
Um,
Metallica.
my
That's
first show was actually REM, which is a weird thing to say out loud, but a bit like just based
You
on my life and how it's happened. But it's funny you say like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and we were watching. My wife and I were watching the Bone Temple, the 28 years later, and there's a lot of Duran Duran in that. And I am the biggest friggin' Duran Duran fan in the entire world, and nobody understands. It's but I'm like, guys, just listen to John Taylor's bass for crying out loud. Listen to like I mean, there's nothing catchier in the world. So I get the eclecticness of how the how everyone's kind of tastes come together. And then there's I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody if you haven't seen it. It's worth the time. But I love how how you kind of like the different stuff. And I was in Vegas for a work thing, and all these people were wearing I think it was Backstreet Boys shirts because they were playing at the Sphere in Vegas, and you see
Yeah.
all these women with their Backstreet Boys shirts. I'm like, what's happening? Like, what am I missing right now? And that's what was going on, and I'm sure those guys are raking it in, and they're living that nostalgia. So, um,
One other piece of this I think is worth mentioning is Jeff, the drummer, used to play drums in some bands, Fatalist, Storm of Light, like extremely heavy, slow doom. Like he'll send us stuff, and I'll be like, I don't know, man, that's almost too heavy for me. So like that color also is there from him, right? So that kind of helps it kind of congeal together.
Yeah, you
love it.
can hear that in his drumming, the ethereal like doom influence because of how back behind the beat he is and where he's doing quarter notes on songs. Like Goat Church is a perfect example of that, where he's just doing quarter notes on the song and it just makes it that much heavier. And I think a lot of his drumming and his fills that he does comes from his influence in that more experimental music and really heavy like doom stuff. And it works for some reason though with our music. I feel like if the drums were like more straightforward, the songs wouldn't have the same dynamic, highs and lows that it has. And I really think like Jeff's the star of the album. I knew like we had a rehearsal one time and Jeff sat in on our previous drummer's drum kit just for like a little jam. And he told me he played drums, but I heard him play and I was like, this guy is good. And I always kept that seed planted in the back of my brain that if for some reason we need new musical chairs, I'm like, we've got to get Jeff on the drums because I know he's a phenomenal drummer. And, he really nailed it on this record. I mean, he did such a good job. And I didn't really realize it at the time when we were rehearsing the songs and even in the recording process of just like how good it was that, what he was doing. And then when I finally heard all the playback, I was like, wow, the drumming it just shines on the album.
Yeah, it does. It's something that I hear very specifically, as I mentioned earlier. You guys are getting a lot of really cool play, and some cool kind of press on like metal injection and decibel. That's cool. Like I don't talk to a ton of bands who have articles. I think they were a little bit lazy because they're very like, oh, Caius from Queens of the Stone Age, right? Cool, like cool. Yeah, I understand that's relatable,
Look
right? And
flattered.
but yeah, it's awesome. I think it's a little lazy just because I'm such a friggin' nerd and I want to call out other bands. Then when you read half the reviews I do, I call out Queens of the Stone Age. But pick somebody else. If there was another band that you would say, if you like them, you would like us. Is there somebody else who you would call out? I'll start with you, Chris, that you would say that you would, fans
Yeah.
of, for fans of, for example.
So when Sako and I started kind of trading riffs and figuring out, okay, what are the boundaries for this? What are we doing? Some bands that came up very strongly were Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, Mono Lord, In Hand, drawing a blank now. Well, other desert rock bands like Truck Fighters, Thousand Moths. Yeah, they bring some of that kind of pop stuff to this genre as well. Dozer. But then like some of the songs, like there's like a song called like Towers is a song on the record, and it's kind of unusual, and that has more of a like a torch quicksand. Like I love I love the Albini sound, all the touch and go bands. There's some of that in there too. What do you guys talk about?
I hear the post metal stuff, by the way. I mean the post hardcore stuff,
Oh
like
yeah,
your
for
quicksands
sure.
and like that.
Yeah.
That's also is candy for me. You just give me
Well,
anything
part of it,
like that.
like part of our thing too, is like there's no lead guitar. There's two guitars, right? And that comes from like Fugazi even. Like there's no dominant voice. It's a blend.
Tucker, I
Yeah, I
think you
mean,
were about to say something.
yeah, so like, if you're talking to people that are hip to music in the scene and in the genre, like I tell people like if you like Slow Mosa, you'll like us because a band like Slow Mosa, they write big heavy riffs, but then the lead singer is singing melodically pretty much in every song and their songs are pretty straightforward and they have a solid groove and all sorts of harmonies and stuff like that. I mean, they're a huge inspiration for me. We're actually seeing them this coming Friday. This will be our second time seeing them
Awesome.
and coming back to the states to tour. So I'm really excited for that. But as cliche as it is, I mean, my hands down, my two of my favorite bands are Queens and Caius, obviously.
Of course.
Those three Queens records. The first album is just, I mean, if I had to be stuck on an island somewhere with only one album to listen to, it'd probably be the first Queens record. So it's been a huge inspiration to me. And then all the little offshoots of the Queens world, right? All the other Eagles of Death Metal and so many other offshoots and side projects, Crooked Vultures, all that stuff that, it's inspired me. And I'm always trying to like create something that, well, let me create something that if someone likes those types of bands, then they'll dig us. Is kind of like my mindset with it,
Mission
but not
accomplished.
like completely rip them off, obviously.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's why I think sometimes it's, people can get the impression that, oh, they just sound like Queens of the Stone Age, because that is mentioned like every time that I see you guys mentioned, and there's so much. I think there's a lot more to what you guys are doing, and I got to talk to John Garcia on the show from Caius, and as a member of Hermano, and that was friggin' awesome. So gigantic fanboy of those bands too. And yeah, Slamosa, like huge. Oh, I think they opened for on the Helmet tour. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys saw them on that tour.
You're there. Yeah.
there for that.
It's
Yeah, we
Great stuff.
met them after the show at their merch booth and we bought t-shirts. I met Marie and I met Ben and they were like the nicest people ever. And it's so funny, like they're from Norway and they wanted to talk American politics with us. I thought it was so strange. And English is not their first language and like they spoke perfect English. It was incredible how intelligent they were and how like aware they are of like things going on in the US and they want to talk with Americans about it. It was a trip.
yeah, but I've talked to maybe 4 or 5 Norwegian bands on here, and they're all super cool, and they speak really great English. They're very attuned to what's going on. I had Kal-El, and speaking of harmonies and melodic and heavy, but yeah, Slamosa is huge. I think they're one of the kind of the, I don't want to say like the hopes, but like a band that can break out. And I feel like you guys are in a similar vein when there's a lot of kind of cross genre hopping that you guys could do based on how the record sounds. I want to ask you before I let you guys go. I feel like this was a special edition in my record, which I'm pretty happy about. But first of all, you guys are definitely Californians because there's songs about driving on highways. Um, so I knew immediately. I didn't have to see that you were from LA to know that. But this is like a street sign and kind of a more of a country kind of view. What do I have in my hands that came with the shirt?
Yeah. The image is from near San Luis Obispo. I was at a songwriters retreat camp and I took a photo there. But what you actually have there is a print, and so I do a lot of kind of visual art stuff because I get so in my head about the music and I need it to be right and kind of the way I want it to be. I was like, okay, I need a creative thing that I don't have to care whether it's good or not. So I do a lot of kind of painting, and so I took a printmaking class, and I got really into cutting linoleum blocks and inking little pieces of paper. So now every online purchase of a Bronco Forte album ships with an original one of one handmade print.
Love it, love it. I was so excited. I'm like, what is that? I love when bands do that because I feel like you guys actually give a crap about the people who buy your stuff and you make it special for the people who have that record in hand. And that's how I felt when I opened that. I'm like, that is very cool. And that has to be relatively unique, right?
I mean, I'll say we're super grateful. Like we rolled into this being like, I don't know if anybody's gonna like this, right? And like so every time somebody buys a record or hits us up online, like it's we're just super grateful that people are kind of getting the idea of what we were trying to do.
There's I'm a member of Doom Charts, and there's a conversation going on right now about this record on our Doom Charts because there was some code shared or whatever. And like the first, generally we don't talk about what we like on there because we're not supposed to like promote who we want to be on the chart. But like there's like 5 comments like, "Love this record, already have this record, love this record," and it was like, wow, you don't generally see that on that chart. It's more like, "Thanks for the code," and then you see the chart, a month later, and you see where people wind up. So, I feel like it's really resonating with at least that crew for sure. And a lot of the people I speak with, other bands that come to mind, um, like you mentioned Dozer, Greenleaf to me. I think the Greenleaf portion of Dozer to me is even more melodic than Dozer is. And there's a band, I don't know if they exist anymore, but every like 3 months or so, I put out a tweet saying, "Please, for the love of God, make a new record." I think they're Italian. They're called Pink Cigs, and they're on Heavy Psych Sounds. And the singer is very like he's singing in melody, like he has a vocal kind of the melody is being drawn and kind of led by his voice. So another record to check out if you like that kind of stuff.
King Buffalo, big fans of them,
Yeah,
and
love those
all
guys.
the Twitch, right? We just saw those two bands together at the Wiltern, an amazing show.
And if you like King Buffalo, the new Elder record, got to speak to Nick from Elder on the show, which was I couldn't believe that he did the show. I was very excited for that, and the new Elder record is amazing. It's a kind of an abundance and there's too much good stuff. It's hard to keep up, which is why I have my trusty Excel that everybody makes fun of, so I can know what I'm listening to and I know what's out there and I know what I want to help to drive and promote. Um, I've kept you longer than I promised. I want to just say I will show it again. Here's the new record from Bronco Forte. It came out April 3rd. April's a tough month. There's a lot of stuff that comes out, especially next week. New Lords of Altamont, new Truck Fighters, um, and a lot of other things. But if you guys have not heard Lightning Scars from Bronco Forte, please change that and get it done quickly. Um, did you see the article where they like had like a weird OJ Simpson kind of
Yes,
tie
we
to you?
do.
Did you see that? What's
The
going on here?
white Bronco.
Yeah, I'm like, God, stretch, big stretch. And by the way, Jen, my favorite episodes are when I have a cat and or dog or both. So please introduce the kitty.
Like one. Here's another one. Look,
Oh, please introduce the kitties.
This is Forky. We did not name him. That's just the name he came with.
this is Casey. She's Siamese. We're a little out of focus right now, but yeah, this is our oldest cat. She's Siamese. She's 13, 13 years old.
Yeah, I don't know
Love it.
why it's out of now. Of course, the cats put like some voodoo on them.
Yeah.
They're like, feed us.
But you should
Pay
know that
attention to us. Pay attention to us instead of the whatever you're doing on that screen.
you should know
Cats are
that
wonderful.
Jen and Tucker were longtime cat rescue operatives out in Reseda. So that is two of like 9, I think, currently.
Well, 5
They
indoor and another 4 or 5 ferals in the colony that we've done trap and release with. So we're trying to control the feral cat population here in Los Angeles because it's booming, especially this time of year.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
Cats,
People
the
after
cats
my
are
own heart.
also listed on the thank yous.
The liner notes, the
Yeah.
cats are the very
Ah.
last 5 thanks on the liner notes of the record are our cats.
I love it. I love it. The band Year of October I talked to out of Tennessee, same thing. They thank their kitties, and it's wonderful. What more could you ask for? And what more of a muse could you ask for than kitties? So I love that you're doing that work. I've rescued a bunch of cats and dogs in my life, and it's so rewarding.
Really
Um,
is.
so it makes people even more want to go buy the new record, for crying out loud. Go get this before it's sold out on Bandcamp. Jen, Sako, Chris, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Really appreciate your time and can't wait to. One more question, one more thing. Chris, you mentioned you're playing with Elk Witch. There's a show you guys have coming up. What do you guys have for live shows that are coming up for you guys?
We've got that Redwood one in May. We've got another one in Reseda in May with a buddy band of ours, an amazing Los Angeles band called Paradise Vultures that everyone should check out. They're crazy and awesome. We are going to be going down to San Diego to play the SoCal Heavy Jam in August. That's a big festival they do every year. But right now, that's it. More's going to come up, but right now we're looking at stuff opportunistically. We don't currently have a tour plan for the album. We just got our new practice space. We're trying to get our feet under us and get some logistic stuff going on. We will no doubt figure out a run of regional dates here sometime, in the foreseeable future, but we don't have anything to announce right at the moment.
Is it the South Carolina, the San Diego one? Is that Nacho from Mazzoa? I think he runs out, or the guys from the Freaks run that. I think that I remember that from last year. It was
Winston, this is where it happens at. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
We
All right.
saw the poster last year and we were like, we got to get on this thing.
And there you go. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. Very, very nice to meet you, and I hope that we can talk again. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.